Hi, welcome to session 7. And in this session, we shall look at women participation in politics and leadership. In the previous session, we looked at the role of state in promoting gender equality, and definitely it has a big it has a big part to play when it comes to women participation in politics. So the state has that big part to play in supporting and promoting equality in terms of leadership positions between men and women, or excuse me, boys and girls. So uh, the Sustainable Development Goal 5 generally looks at gender equality, but of course that promotion of gender equality captures all the different dimensions of development in terms of politics, economics, or psychological dimension, or social dimension. So the goal aims at achieving gender equality and empower all women and girls, and therefore targeting to ensure that women's full and effective participation and equal opportunities for leadership is achieved at all levels of decision making in the other dimensions of development, including politics, economic, and other public life aspects, and therefore looks at the measurement in terms of indicators. So by the measurement looks at proportion of seats held by women in both national parliaments, but also local governments. If, for instance, you consider Uganda's governance structure, so we have the decentralized governance, and also we have the local government structure, which has different levels from right from the village up to local council 5, where you have all those different categories of leadership positions. So the indicator measures those who have seats in the centralized position, but also in the local government position. So you can visit this website, I mean this YouTube, and this link gives you a very summarized 1.5 minutes version of the Sustainable Development Goal 5. So there are key websites, and one of them is the Interparliamentary Union website. So the Interparliamentary Union as an organization or agency captures mainly the data of men and women who hold seats within the centralized structures, that is such as the ministerial positions, but also the parliaments within about 179 countries. So you could go there and check it out and see. You just type in the name of the country you want to check out, and then it will give you the trends on how that particular country has been faring in terms of achievement of the of achievement of target 5.5 towards that effective participation of women in political positions. So why women in politics? So there are different arguments. You could also visit CASA 2015, who also provides some of those arguments, especially in their uh, explanation about challenges and opportunities for women participation in Ethiopia. So, argument one, regarding why we should have or promote women in politics. Argument one is the justice argument, which concentrates on women, argues that women constitute a big percentage of population and therefore thus have a right to be represented, because if the biggest percentage is not represented, then it means that somehow, somewhere, the development interventions are not responsive to the needs of the biggest percentage. So it is just and fair to have that particular percentage represented. Two is the experience argument, that women's experiences and needs are different from men too. So this has an implication on what kind of policies or how policies are made and therefore implemented. So again, we are looking at the idea of responsiveness. So policies must be responsive to the needs of everyone, regardless of their differences. So in this case, the experience of the female counterparts is different from that of male counterparts, and therefore having women in politics gives them puts them in a position that they will have their needs represented or responded to within the policy arena. The interest argument looks at women's interests are different from men too, and again that relates to the previous two arguments I've just talked about. Women's interests are different based because if the needs are different, then the interests also are as well different. There is also a symbolic argument which looks at women in politics being seen as models to inspire other females to also aspire for great things in life, to those that have to do with the capabilities and functionings of each individual. To do what the things they value, or to be the things they would love to be. And therefore, if we have more women representative in politics, then you have models that would also inspire other females or younger generations to take up such positions of leadership, and therefore knowing that they can also be do better in life. So a good example now you have, for instance, the US. Again, in the 1920s, women were not voting, but with engagement in women's movements and so on, now US has shifted from allowing women to vote, but also take up such big positions, and that's why you can see the US has a vice president who is a female. So that's a great achievement, and she indeed is a model for other females. There is critical mass argument, which looks at a certain level of representations, but also in terms of for purposes of solidarity, that women as a marginalized group therefore has that capacity or point or reference, that it is represented as a particular group of marginalized group. Then we also have the democracy argument, which of course definitely looks at equal representation, which has to do with the ideas of democratization and good governance. Yeah, in the last session we looked at those state structures and how they might influence uh, gender equality. So therefore, the democracy argument looks at that kind equal representation, but also that kind of good governance that allows legitimate processes that capture the legitimate processes that capture women's ideas and needs when it comes to decision making. But of course, as much as we would want to have women in politics, there are many obstacles that still persist. Although, of course, development is a process, so we can't say that we should be able to deal with this problem of gender inequality within years or a few decades. So it's a process and it's still going on. So it might even take us more a few centuries to have that kind of equality uh, to within within our communities or other leadership positions. So some of the challenges to women participation in politics include social obstacles, and these have to do with persistent traditions that view women as weaker groups, but also view women to that the, from the perspective that they are supposed to have their roles done within, I mean, at household level, rather than going far beyond household to look at community leadership or country leadership as well. Those social obstacles that involve prejudice. So those prejudicial assumptions and stereotypes of leadership roles that leadership roles should be taken by men rather than women. You also have the socialization aspect that where you have children or a girl child, for instance, learning to do more of reproductive roles and community roles rather than engaging in other roles such as leadership. Um, then you also have, for instance, of course, the social obstacles that have to do with limited limitations that challenge women from engaging in social networks within, of course, those social networks. If women are engaged in were to engage in those social networks, they would rather, of course, gain social support, and that social support can come with information access and other kinds of advantages that would help women participate in public spaces. So if you have limited outings, I mean, in terms of women being more at household or staying home rather than going out to engage with other groups in public, then that limits them from participating in politics or decision making processes. You have the gender roles, which also relate to the social obstacles. Of course, the gender roles have to do with the patriarchy, which is an outcome of course, or an outcome or an enforcement of or enforcer of social stratification, and therefore looking at women or at men as the rule of the rulers or decision makers or breadwinners within households, and therefore positioning women in subordinate positions. And then you also, of course, have gender division of labor, and then you where women do much more. Um, uh, for instance, you have women trying to balance now that they are engaged in economic activities or the formal workplace, so they have that yes advantage of working outside home, but then it's challenging to balance the reproductive, the community and productive roles, and therefore even adding the roles of leadership would therefore broaden the triple burden regarding roles among women, and therefore that challenges them from participating. So you can also watch this video on concerning the dilemma of choosing political leadership roles, and see how some women are challenged in terms of leadership. We also have religious obstacles, again related to the social obstacles, where you have those dominant ideologies that promote having more men in leadership positions than women, and therefore exclude women from leadership positions. You can take an example of Muslim women who are still playing so much role of being subordinates than being in leadership positions. Yeah, so that is very key. We also have the economic factors. For instance, I mean, in the 21st century, you have women. I mean, politics has been commercialized, and therefore leading to raising costs of elections, and therefore uh, if we consider other limitations, yes, women do not have those enough. Mostly women are limited in terms of resources, and therefore depend on men, and therefore cannot have enough resources to run for particular positions, such as parliamentary positions. For instance, in Uganda, want to become a parliamentarian, you just have to go through all sorts of borrowing here money, borrowing there money. So you must have either if a woman must do that, they must either have support uh, of the husband, but or if they have the capacity to do so. So, but also you have the marriage also leading to change of community. So a woman gets married to another community where they have not grown up, and therefore they have limited base of social networks that would therefore support them. And then you also have limited women's engagement in formal employment, and therefore that causes limited economic resources. If you have limited economic resources, then they would that itself would limit them from engaging into leadership positions. And of course, limited property rights, no collateral, and therefore no channels of getting support to invest in politics. You also have political obstacles, where you have patriarchal taints of state apparatuses. You have, for instance, you have women who get to parliament, and then again, men within the parliamentary positions or other leadership positions want to treat women again in a way that they shouldn't be there. So therefore undermining women's opinions. But of course, so you have that kind of gender-based exploitation. You could also see this outlet of a publication that looks at sexism and sexual harassment in parliament, therefore bring about experiences of women within parliament. And of course, also, if we have limited supportive policies to encourage women participation, then that reduces their advantages to participate. So in the previous session, we looked at different state structures or logics of state, and some of them, and one of them was neo-patrimonialism, and we had political settlements that are not gender sensitive. In this case, would limit also women participation, and also political patronage and clientelism. Although all these three have some implication. So in the next few slides, we can just look at neo-patrimonialism, political settlements, and political patronage. So we said that, of course, political neo-patrimonial states are states that are characterized by powerful, big people, but of course, again, commonly men, with their colonies participating in decision making. And therefore, in that case, if for instance, commonly we have men, then I mean, women have this advantage of participating in decision making processes. So the implications would be that such institutions have are tainted with limited promotion of women participation in politics, tainted with corruption, and of course, corruption has an implication on inequalities again, because they are looking at who is affected at the end if we have experiences of corruption, and of course, the poor and the children are the ones who would be mostly affected. So you have all those multiplier implications of gender issues and gender equality promotions, because if neo-patrimonialism has implications on different development arenas and actors, including government, judiciary, and parliament, or justice, or civil society organizations, or armed forces, or the media, all that has an implication on whether women's positions in politics would be promoted or realized. For political settlement, if you have limited state support in advancing or promoting women's political participation, then that has an implication on, for instance, how many numbers of women would occupy, let's say, particular positions within the judicial or legislative or executive leadership positions. So we'll see, of course, an example of Bernette Kanakuze regarding Rwanda's political settlement of women participation in a moment. So political settlements, of course, we look at national commitment to gender equality, and of course that has an implication on whether women would be encouraged or facilitated to participate in politics. Commitment to ensure equal rights between men and women, the national gender policies, you have the level of integration of gender perspectives in development policies and programs. All those have implication on whether women would be more participating in politics or not. Then you have, of course, political clientelism and patronage, where you have that dyadic relationship between two individuals of unequal economic statuses, and of course, you have those characteristics of distribution of state resources by office holders. Mostly, again, biggest percentage in most countries, you have men distributing resources, because with the aim of course, electoral support. So in this case, if we are looking at gender or women in politics, then we are looking at those officials who are mainly male, trying to encourage women to support men again, to give them more votes, and therefore retaining those particular positions that they have, and therefore giving limited space to women from participating. So this has implications on gender equality, of course, and women participation in politics. So how these informal and clientelistic forms of politics involve particular ways of exchanging goods, of course, shape prospects of women's political empowerment or participation in that case. So all these state structures or state arrangements or state logics have an implication on whether women will mostly be supported or not supported in terms of political participation. And of course, I have provided these two case videos that look at participation of women. And of course, one is looking at women power and politics in Rwanda. And apparently, Rwanda is mostly is mostly celebrated or praised in that case, if you will, for having the biggest percentage of women in parliamentary positions and other political positions within the central government. But of course, one question would be whether that number indeed means that women are enjoying participation in politics, or whether they are there for purposes of political patronage. So those are cases for serious or critical thinking in that case. So the question would be, does having many women in parliament translate into having women enjoying their political positions, or there are other factors that indeed are influencing these big numbers? So that you could think about that. Then you have also this, I have provided this link that takes you to a short video also looking at challenges that women face in political leadership in Kenya, and you'll hear mostly women experiencing some of the issues that we've just talked about in the previous slides. But one other thing is that commonly, yes, you have women who are already in politics becoming their own obstacles, to those who already own or occupy political positions, but also becoming obstacles to those who are vying to become politicians, or those who want to occupy other leadership positions. So women acting as their own obstacles. You could have a simple discussion on that in your own time. But of course, even if we have challenges, it doesn't mean that we don't have. We don't have those particular opportunities that would help women engage and enjoy political positions. So, for instance, now from Uganda's case, you have constitutional and legal frameworks that provide for political recognition of women's rights and therefore uh, encourage their participation in politics. You have political settlements, for instance, state support in advancement of women and promoting gender equality. The case of Rwanda. You have improved opportunities to improve women's economic productivity and property ownership, and therefore a state logic that is democratic therefore gives more leverage to women to also allow them to participate in politics because they can now have access to resources that would help them to engage in those leadership positions, or even having their statuses improved and therefore can be recognized as potential leaders. And you have improved women's access to public spaces and information, and therefore can have all those have access to information, public information, information regarding politics and other positions within communities and governance structures, and therefore can use those social networks for support, either for individual or collective agency and action. And then you have open spaces for advocacy. For instance, if you have the government that's a government that states that supports women's organizations or civil society organizations or donors to advocate or lobby, in that case doing their catalyst roles to influence women participation in politics. So this is an example of Rwanda's case. So between 2013 and 2015, you have percent changes in males and females occupation of leadership roles. So an example, when we look at cabinet, as ministers, you have a total of 20 ministers, and in 2013 you have males percentage decreasing from 12 to 11 in 2015, and therefore having females percentage increase from 35% to 40%. So that's a plus for women. And of course, if you look at, that's one of the positions within the top executive or centralized central government. If you look at local governments, for instance, you have of course you have mayoral positions did not change between 2013 to 2015, and therefore the 90% of mayors were men compared to women. But if you look at governors, at least women gained one more position within the governors positions, and therefore a plus again. When it comes to parliament, so you have 80, and therefore you can see you have 29 males in 2013 and 29 males again in 2015, compared to 51 females and 51 females between 2013 and 2015, and therefore you see that you have many women taking parliamentary positions compared to men. And then you have these other positions. For instance, within the Supreme Court, you have 7 and 7 by 2015, which was a change from 8 to to 6 within 2013. So that is again a plus. So you can see at least Rwanda is trying to have women get more representation within political decisions, and that's the political settlement where we were talking about previously. So, in conclusion, of course, what we are saying is that it begins with you, your knowledge and commitment to fight for the rights of all individuals equally, and therefore advocate for women's leadership within all development arenas. So I also provide this short video. You can visit this link that shows gives a case of how women could succeed in politics. Note that we are not only focusing at national leadership but also international, community and organizational leadership. So the participation of women in politics, we are not only talking about politics, governance politics within the state structures. We are also looking at those leadership positions at community levels. Maybe there is a water source management committee. How many women are within that committee? If you're looking at a monitoring and evaluation committee of a particular service, how many women are part of that? If you're looking at your organization where you have worked, or where your friend works, or where your father works, how many, or your mother, how many women occupy leadership positions, or are they just within the lower levels of leadership rather than top? So when we're talking about politics and leadership, we are not only talking about governance alone. So some key readings you could look at this. I've provided them within Moodle. Look at Kesa 2015, who looks at challenges and opportunities of women political participation in Ethiopia, but also Anne Marie 2002 gives a very nice snapshot of women's experiences in Uganda's politics from a patronage perspective. So you could look at that, and I'm sure you could enjoy it. So these are some of other resources that you could use to enhance your knowledge regarding women in politics and leadership. Thank you.